If you thought the presidential election was fun, wait 4 years. There'll be another one. But there's always bloodshed and jihad from people who think they're serving God. It tells them that in their Quran, but you're better off with the Gospel of John. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to This Week in Jihad. We have here the great David Wood. David, I got to tell you, I feel like the poems that have gotten such good reviews in the past, they're kind of suffering lately, and I was thinking of going to the top of a high mountain and throwing myself off. What do you think about that as a plan?
Yeah, it worked for Muhammad.
There you go. I think that it would certainly improve the literary output here, because that's obviously what he thought. And after all, he's one of the most influential people in history who never existed. So, we have just, of course, come through the presidential election in the United States, and you all know about that, but there might be some things that you might not know about that, and this one comes from the Islamic Republic of Iran, where they put out this lovely graphic. I really was impressed. And what you see here are the candidates in the recent election, and their shadow is a common shadow.
Funny.
And you see whose shadow it is, of course. The great.
Jibril.
Yes, Jibril. That's very good. But of course, they call in Iran, they call America the Great Satan. And so there it is. They are both the same. And at least in the eyes of the Islamic Republic, the Iranian military put this out on Twitter or X shortly after midnight on Wednesday morning. And the caption they put on it was, "Offspring of the same Satan, false saviors of the sinking ship of terror and bloodshed." You got to admit, their poetry is better than mine, David. There you go.
I just have to, no, it just cracks me up that Iran, who's like behind every terrorist scheme on the planet right now, is like, and these terrorists, these evil, bad people, terrorists, must be destroyed, for they serve Satan. It's crazy. That's it's similar to like Andrew Tate, who is a sex trafficker now accused of trafficking minors and raping minors and all these things and facing life in prison. And he'll just start lecturing the world on morality and what it's like to be a real man and so on. And people listen. It's like, are you people insane? That's the last person in the world you should be listening to. But it's like Iran lecturing the world on what countries are supposed to be like and what leaders are supposed to be.
Yeah, and you'd think that if anybody knows a sinking ship of terror and bloodshed, it's the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Oh, yeah.
So they got that part right. But actually, the displacement, the projection is extremely common in Islam for jihadis to blame the victim of the jihad, to project what they're doing onto their victims. And so this is just, I think, another example of that they see the United States as their adversary, and so they charge it with terror and bloodshed, which, of course, they're responsible for all over the world.
Yeah, you mentioned the projection. Me and AP have to talk about that all the time, because you have all the Muslims who complain about Israel. It's just constantly, and they believe they're superior. The Jews believe they're superior to everyone else, and that this gives them license to take over the world. It's like, that's exactly what you believe. They don't believe that. That's what you literally believe.
And you're
accusing them of you're accusing them of wanting something they don't want. And it's exactly what you want. And you're condemning them for what you projected onto them from yourself. It's absolutely insane. But yeah, they do love to do that.
There's a whole lot more. They do it pretty much in everything. And I think one of the things that we see with Israel is that they accuse the Israelis, the IDF, more than once I've seen this, of sexual violence and sexual humiliation. that they claim that they have taken Palestinian soldiers or Palestinian civilians and raped them, that they subject them to this humiliation that is based in sexuality. And I think that's exactly what you do. You use rape as a weapon for humiliation and subjugation, and then claim that the Israelis do that when there's no indication that they do whatsoever outside of the accounts coming from these jihadis. So
Yeah. By
meanwhile,
the way, by the way, on the topic of Iran, since we just had an election, and it's interesting that that Iran did take a shot there on Twitter. But what do you think the mullahs are thinking right now with Trump? Because Trump isn't inclined, as far as I've seen, to hand over just piles and piles of money to appease the Iranians. But he also doesn't apparently want to start wars and so on. So do you think the Iranians are thinking, oh no, now we're screwed? Or do you think they're thinking, this guy's all talk, he's not going to actually do anything because he don't want to start any wars?
well, he doesn't want to start any wars, but there's other things he can do. And not sending them the money would be a big thing to do, because Obama sent them billions, pallets of cash in the dark of night. Nobody was supposed to know, but somebody was around who didn't like the idea and took pictures, and so the whole thing got out. And otherwise, we would never know. And then Biden actually did a sanctions waiver to send them $10 billion in previously frozen assets after October 7th. Now, imagine if they did not have those billions from Obama, which some people calculated was up to $33 billion that Obama sent them, and then 10 more or 16 more from Joe. So that's nearly $50 billion courtesy of the place they call the Great Satan. Imagine if they didn't have it. During the Trump years, the Islamic Republic almost fell, and the people were fed up and were protesting against the regime. Maybe if they hadn't gotten all that cash, they would not have been able to hold off the people.
Yeah, isn't that I understand nations saying to one nation saying to another nation, "Hey, here's this thing that you want to do, but we don't want you to do it, and we're willing to kick you some cash to get you to agree not to do this thing that you want to do." I understand that. When you're dealing with like homicidal maniacs and terrorists, just absolutely crazy, who are behind numerous terrorist groups, it just seems like that is the last way in the world you'd want to negotiate with them. It seems like there's one way to negotiate with them, guys. If we even think you're making a nuclear, if I even hear a rumor that you guys are building a nuclear bomb, I'm not even going to think. I'm just going to wake up and say, all right, bomb something, bomb anything that is in the area of anything we think might be a nuclear facility. And that's how I deal with it. You don't like, oh, we'll send you money to be slightly less crazy, and we'll give you money to do all the other crazy stuff you want to do. As long as you don't do this crazy thing, you can fund terrorists around the world with the money we're giving you, and we'll just let the world live with the consequences of all the weapons and terrorist groups we just funded by sending you piles and piles of cash. Seems insane. Seems like there's much better ways of dealing with. Again, there's you can negotiate with normal leaders. You can even negotiate with some bad leaders. The crazy want to conquer the entire world and murder as many people as possible. That is not a group you negotiate with in normal ways.
Yes, and it is quite spectacularly insane, and yet it continues. It's gone on for 12 of the last 16 years, and we can hope that it will stop now. Once again, we'll see. But meanwhile, just this morning also, the Islamic Republic made a little gesture of defiance. There is a place in the Golan Heights that is called Trump Heights, because Trump, while he was president before, recognized the Golan as part of Israel. And in gratitude for that, this area was named Trump Heights.
It's my new golf course. It's the best golf course in Israel.
I don't know. The Golan Heights is pretty rocky terrain. I don't know that it would be good for a golf course. But the Hezbollah, which is a wholly owned and operated subsidiary of the Islamic Republic of Iran, celebrated Trump's victory speech early Wednesday morning by sending rockets into Trump Heights on the Golan, launching a rocket barrage at the Trump Heights as well as central Israel.
Well, that's pretty stupid. Just think about it, because I've been legitimately wondering for the past several hours. Let's say it hasn't been weeks. I've just been wondering for the past several hours, how are all these Muslim groups and terrorist groups and nations and stuff going to react? Because again, you've got a guy who he's not weak like the Biden administration in terms of just they're gonna fall down in front of you. But at the same time, is a guy who has repeatedly proclaimed that he doesn't want to go out and start wars and be fighting wars around the world. So what do? Do you try to get off to a new start and say, hey, let's we don't you don't want wars, we don't want wars. Let's just end all the wars. Do you do something like that, or do you start provoking him? They have now they're firing stuff. Now they're firing rockets. Brilliant strategy, guys.
Yeah, not a guy they really ought to be provoking. Anyway,
yeah, Trump should come out. You know what? I didn't want any wars, but now you pissed me off. You bombed my spot. It's going to be the most beautiful golf course ever. The most beautiful golf course ever. You ruined it. All right. Now it's on.
The best golf course in the Golan Heights.
It's going to be the new golf course. We're going to make the rest of the Middle East a big parking lot for my golf course.
It's a hilly place too to put a golf course, but anyway.
It makes it more challenging.
That's true. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Steel City. You know what they got in Pittsburgh, David?
They got one good thing, the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's it.
They got Hamas.
What? No, I was about to say the greatest sports dynasty of all time, and you say that's terrorists? Come on, Robert.
Not the Steelers. This guy. This is Mohammed Hamad. And Mohammed Hamad calls himself a Hamas operative. Here he has taken a selfie. He's given the ISIS one-finger salute for Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, and he's wearing a Hamas headband and the ninja suit, and he's got a America and Israel united or allied flag or banner or something that probably he's going to tear up or destroy. Anyway, this Hamas operative, Mohammed Hamad, in Pittsburgh, PA, big Steelers fan, he was going around the city defacing Jewish buildings like synagogues, Jewish schools, buildings in the Jewish community, genocide, graffiti like that. And he had a partner in doing this, a friend of his, who was this leftist Jewish girl whose name is Talia Lubit. And she was also caught with him spraying Hamas graffiti onto synagogues.
Robert, is this one of the people they refer to as useful idiots?
Why, yes, David. That's a useful term for them. Mm-hmm. She said that she was starting to think Jews were enemies because of all the alleged, of course, non-existent genocide that's supposedly going on in Gaza. Anyway, Hamad was a little more dangerous than just graffiti also. He bought explosives and was planning to become a martyr for Islam, he said. And he also made donations to Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, the Muslim congresswomen.
Now, anyway, that's weird, Robert, because I hear Muslims complaining about Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib all the time for not being Islamic enough and being bad Muslims. And they're even keep people like Muhammad Hijab, call them apostates and so on. Mm-hmm. And yet they will in an instant rally around these women and fund them and help them take over the government. Interesting stuff. By the way, when you said the one-fingered salute, Robert, mm-hmm.
That's the index finger.
Yeah, whenever I hear you say that, it's like I became a Christian in 1996. The one regret I have as a Christian is that I can't flip people off, because it's like I just loved flipping people off back in the day, walking right by them, driving down the street with my hand out the window at people and stuff like that. Can't do it because you'd want to return a one finger salute to these guys when they do the one finger salute.
Yes,
I'm gonna have
different
I'm,
finger.
I'm gonna have to ask some Christian scholars. Be like, okay, we're not talking about a regular guy. We're talking about a terrorist. Can I give him a one finger salute? It's a terrorist here. It's not a random person. I don't know. We'll have to find out.
It's a good question. It's a good question for the theologians.
Well, it's interesting that you've got Hamas in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I remembered I was getting bored last night waiting for the election results to come in, because I was just basically wanting to say funny stuff about elections and stuff. Anyway, all of a sudden I blurted out. I said, the worst thing about this election is that it has convinced people from Pennsylvania that their state matters.
That's because you're from West Virginia. Am I right?
Yeah, but it was funny because then like people thought that was funny, and then so they like made me keep doing it, because then they were talking about Wisconsin. Then I said, every 4 years I have to find out that Wisconsin still exists. End this now. And anyway, I just ended up trolling everyone. I just ended up trolling everyone's state.
Well,
Every state that was mentioned as a battleground state, I started making
any state where they actually wear big cheese hats, I think they got it coming. All right, where is this guy? I know he's in here. Well, anyway, actually, I wanted to do a few more Iran things. Iran also put up this threat. This is in Tehran. What? You saw this?
Just Iran, like it's like Iran's like it's like a bad case of fleas that a dog puts up with for a while. You know, I mean, you just put up with, the dog's got a few fleas here. Iran's like the bad case of fleas that you could get rid of anytime you want, and they just kind of put up with it for a while. But we'll shake
you know
them off.
what? Iran is kind of like the Muhammad hijab of nations. I will break you. You know,
me strong, me fight you. Oh,
exactly. It's like if Muhammad hijab were a country, it'd be the Islamic Republic of Iran.
yeah.
Anyway,
There's a video, Robert, of Muhammad Hijab years ago at some rally. He's running his mouth, and some like 90-year-old guy popped him in the jaw, and Muhammad Hijab could barely stand up and had to be dragged out of there by police and so on. But that's a good summary of Iran. Someone who's thumping their chest all day and got a glass jaw.
yeah. So this is the side of a building in Tehran, and you can see that it's got the mushroom cloud. I don't know if you can make that out, but it's got the mushroom cloud.
We can.
People running away from the mushroom cloud, and the caption there, which the caption right above the mushroom cloud says Teloshima, as in Tel Aviv, Hiroshima, that they're going to nuke Tel Aviv.
Yeah, they sure are.
Well, it's interesting that I thought this was interesting that they put this up, because for years the American government has actually believed the supreme leader of Iran that they don't want nuclear weapons. And
it's just for electricity, Robert, isn't it?
Yes.
Didn't they say that? They just want nuclear power. That's why they've got these nuclear sites over here, right?
Yeah, Khamenei, the supreme leader, actually issued a fatwa saying that nuclear weapons were un-Islamic. And John Kerry was Secretary of State during the Obama administration, and he actually bought it. And so people would say, aren't you worried about Iran's nuclear program? And he would say, no, we got this fatwa. Says that there's not going to be any nuclear weapons. So
that's
this
as good as
same
gold.
country, yeah. So now they put up this sign, this massive sign. You see the cars over here on the road. This is a massive billboard covering the whole side of a building, saying Teloshima, and got a mushroom cloud, unmistakably threatening to nuke Tel Aviv. With
what do you mean unmistakably?
Unmistakably.
We just mean that with all our nuclear capabilities now, we're going to be able to power the entire world, and that it's going to be the bomb.
Yep. That's all they meant. Iran is the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Da bomb. All right. I got more. I got more Iran here. A Baha'i man named oh, oh, there he is. Behrad Azargan, who is a Baha'i in Iran. He was sentenced to 11 years prison and confiscation of his assets. So not only is he going to jail, but he's going to be a poor man when he gets out because his assets have been confiscated. And this poor guy was given 5 years in prison for the propaganda against the regime by holding music classes, plus 4 years for membership in certain groups intending to disrupt national security, which would be the Baha'is, and 2 years for spreading false information. So he got 5 years for teaching music. Why would that be, David? What on earth would that have to do with the Islamic Republic of Iran?
Don't play ignorant with me, Robert.
I have to, because otherwise, how do we set up that you can explain this?
Yes, music is haram. Muhammad, not a big fan of music. Big fan of rape and torture and murder and beheadings and so on, burning people's eyeballs out. Big fan of all that stuff. Music, not so much. So music frowned upon. But in this case, it's sort of amplified. If you're Baha'i, they want to go after you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a problem. If you really, really want to go after someone and you're the government, you can always find a reason. You can always find a reason. You can always find a reason to arrest someone. So, hey, I don't like this Christian over here. I'll arrest him and tell you what he's in trouble for. But that's what they do.
It's wild because the Islamic regime, oddly enough, the Islamic regime in Iran doesn't generally enforce the prohibition against music. But you're right, they just have it at hand if they need it and they want to get somebody on something, then they have that.
Well, that's what places like Dearborn did. When they used to have the Dearborn Arab Festival, and then Christians would show up and be handing out pamphlets and so on, handing out Jesus DVDs, copies of the Gospel of John in Arabic and so on. But they'd be handing them out around the Arab Festival. And so they actually made it a rule. They made it a law during the Arab Festival that you couldn't distribute anything, because they couldn't say Christians can't hand things out during the Arab Festival. They couldn't say that because then you would be targeting a religious group and so on. So what they did was they said no one can hand anything out during the Arab Festival unless you have like an assigned booth that they have agreed to and they know what you're handing out. But then they would only enforce it against Christians. Because you walk down there, I actually filmed it. You walk down there, people are handing stuff out left and right. Muslims are handing out pamphlets. Businesses are handing things out. As soon as a Christian did it, boom, security would surround them and take them to police and so on. And so that's how you do it. You make a rule and then you decide selectively who you're going to enforce it against, and you enforce it against people you don't like
So
the
you're
Baha'is.
saying that Dearborn all those years ago was already behaving like the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Yeah, and if only someone had warned people, because now you have all these guys screaming death to America and stuff right there in Dearborn, and everyone's going, where'd this come from? Oh, it was there. It was there. And I recall people telling you it was there. And you said, no, stop lying, racists and bigots. Let's have a show called All American Muslim. You remember they did that in response?
Oh, yeah.
We're going around saying what people are saying in Dearborn and exposing the weird ideas there. And what did they do? They decided to make this TV show, All American Muslim. And it's about Muslims in Dearborn and how pro-America they are. And they had like a American flag hijab on and stuff. I think it got canceled after the first season or something like that. But
yeah, I bet it was a real great show. I mean, just imagine. The problem is that I remember Reza Aslan at that time, the cannibal and Islamic apologist, saying that what we need is a Muslim Cosby show. Of course, he didn't mean the raping Cosby. He meant maybe he did. Actually.
Would have been perfect. Hello, ladies. I've got a drink for you. Just take a little sip. I got to put them in the right.
Allahu Akbar. But he meant the folksy avuncular Cosby, so that people would realize that Muslims were just ordinary folks. And instead, of course, it became a big victim fest where they were always whining about how they were oppressed they were. And I don't know that people really wanted to watch that. But David, the Islamic Republic of Iran is getting a bad rap here. So I got to tell you, they're actually moderates.
Good, good, good.
Because the other news item I got out of Iran this week is that they amputated the fingers of two thieves.
Oh, but really?
Yeah, they did
That's
not
progress.
amputate the hand. They
That's
amputated
progress.
the fingers, the four fingers on the right hand. The thumb they left, and they leave the palm, but they just amputate the fingers. And they did that with two guys. It's for the first offense. For the second offense, then it goes at the wrist. And so I thought, what could be more moderate? The Quran says, cut off the hand. So,
and you're only chopping off fingers.
Chopping off just a few fingers. That's
no, that's good. That's progress, Robert. That's progress in the Muslim world. By the way, for everyone who's watching, I always thought that was like a really stupid rule. And I'm not just talking about because you're inflicting bodily punishment on someone. I can completely understand that. Like if you'd said, hey, the thief, lash him, and you were going to give him a bunch of lashes or something like that, that would be one thing. But when you're like chopping off his hand, some people are stealing because some people steal, they've made a life out of it. Other people steal because, gosh, I don't have any money and my kids are starving and stuff like this. I'm going to go steal something. And you chop the hand off, and now you just made it significantly more difficult for that person to earn a living in the future. And so it's like, can't you come up with something that doesn't make it more difficult for this guy to stop doing what you're condemning him for doing? You're saying, hey, you have to stop doing this. But then the reason he was doing that, you're making things more difficult for him. So that what else is he going to do now?
Indeed.
He can't work construction right now. Can't go out and work construction. What your jobs just became significantly more limited because you chopped his hands off.
Yeah, the whole idea is just to strike terror. And so they don't care about any of those considerations. They just want to terrorize you into submission. Anyway, the other big story out of Iran has to do with the girl. I'm not going to show the picture. The picture's gone out everywhere, and this is a G-rated show. But she stripped to her underwear in Iran when she was being hassled, protesting against the dress code mandating the hijab and so on. And I thought what was interesting, well, many things interesting about this story, but one was that there was a lot of gaslighting, a lot of lying about it. People on Twitter were saying, oh, no, she's mentally ill. She was having a psychotic episode or something, and it doesn't have anything to do with the hijab law. And luckily, other people came in and said there's just no indication of this whatsoever. And reports out of Iran showing that she was protesting against the hijab in doing this. Student at Tehran Islamic Azad University. Her name is Ahu Daryai. Please keep her in your prayers because she was taken into custody and nobody knows what's happened to her since. And she could have been killed by the morality police of the Islamic Republic or being subjected to torture, rape, absolutely, because rape, it's the woman's fault in Islam. And if you get raped, it's because you have not succeeded in preventing men from being tempted. And so that's on you. And so in the Islamic Republic in prison, they actually rape women who are about to be executed so that they'll go to hell.
And this is a situation where what they want to do is, hey, if you're gonna flout our morality laws, we're gonna treat you like a prostitute here. You want to walk around in your underwear? We're gonna treat you like you want to be treated. And they would think that they're actually helping her. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like the guys, you can actually be raping a girl and thinking that you're doing the right thing. This is what happens when you let Islam infect your mind. Yeah, but fortunately, as you pointed out, people exposed everyone who was saying, no, she's just mentally ill. One of the women from Iran, I forget which one, you have a number of commentators on on X who are from Iran. And
Mm.
one of them said, no, I forget who it was, her sister or something like that, did a protest. And what did they do? They hauled her off to a mental hospital and said that she has mental problems. She's like, my sister, whoever this was, had no mental problems and stuff. They just say that. So they decide, are we going to take you to prison or are we going to toss you into a mental hospital? And whatever they think is most fitting. But it's pretty absurd to. It's pretty absurd for these guys. Oh, she's protesting. She must be absolutely insane to protest against our government, knowing what we'll do to her. Let's toss her in an asylum. And everyone goes, "Oh, you see, she's crazy. It's been determined by Iran." Freaking morons.
Yes. And it's also noteworthy that both the Iranian regime and the governments of Germany and France, they're doing the same things. In Germany, France, and elsewhere, if you commit an act of jihad, they'll say you're insane and put you in a mental hospital. And
isn't that interesting?
In Iran, if you protest against the same worldview, you get thrown into a mental hospital.
Guys, if you're brand new here, you don't know what we're talking about. If you watch this every week or every time we're on, you know exactly what we're talking about, because story after story after story, when someone in France or Germany or something like that decides to go on a killing spree in the name of ISIS or Al Qaeda or whoever, the authorities go in there and they declare that the person is mentally ill. And we talk about why. And it's, well, if you've just spent the past 2 decades training your entire population that Islam is so incredibly peaceful and tolerant, well, you start to conclude anyone who thinks that this is commanding them to kill must absolutely be insane, because that's the only way to interpret such peaceful texts as calling for violence. And so it's just built into them now. Hey, this guy's killing in the name of Allah, must be absolutely insane. Put him in an asylum. Don't send him to prison. Put him in an asylum. And there you have the reverse in Iran. If you have any objections to Islam imposing all these restrictions on you, you must be absolutely insane and you need to be put in an asylum. This is what a world we live in, man. What a world we live in.
What a world indeed. Hey,
everyone's crazy.
I don't usually do this, but here we go. I had to put up this comment because I'm the other guy. Howdy, D. Wood and the other man. Hope all is well.
Dr. Macho Taco.
All right, let's see. Can you do this on here?
What's that?
Let's see. I had to put my keyboard out of the way. There we go. Oh, it didn't show up. Oh, there we are. Okay.
Oh, the other. That's what you were doing? I was like, oh, wow, we're about to see Robert do something new, like play a video or something like that. He's going super high tech. Wrong.
No, I haven't mastered videos. I got to ask you about that off the air, because I tried to get some videos ready, and it's weird because you can either show it without sound or it takes over everything and charges me rent, and I just don't understand it. But anyway, let's go to Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, this one got a lot of publicity. You probably heard about this. The Taliban have issued a new edict banning women from hearing each other's voices. And the Minister for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice, Khalid Hanafi, he says, even when an adult female prays and another female passes by, she must not pray loudly enough for them to hear. So they are not to speak loudly or hear each other's voices.
Smart. You know what's wild, Robert? I mean,
that's wild enough right there.
No, I mean seriously wild, right? Like, so I recorded a series in like 2008 or 2009 for for some ministry or something like that. Anyway, several years later, we get ISIS. But I was talking about all the various things that Sharia calls for and so on. And I was pointing out that even Muslim nations don't enforce this because they understand they have to get along in the world today. And all kinds of pressures were put on them and so on by, just like John F. Kennedy and so on, started telling the Saudis, hey, you got to end slavery and so on. Mm-hmm. Anyway, there were all kinds of pressures put on the Muslim world to change their rules about various things, and they did. But I was pointing out, you're going to get some Muslim groups that just say, hey, this is all compromise. We're not here to compromise, and so on. Here's the things they're going to do. And anyway, the guy messaged me and he said, hey, all the stuff you said that they would do once they decide to stop, it's exactly what ISIS is doing. And it's like, yeah, because
Wow.
they're reading the same books I'm reading. They're reading the exact same books. And I'm going, hey, if they take this seriously, here's what they'll do. And they're going, hey, we take this seriously. This is what we have to do. But what's weird, so that's ISIS. What's weird is like with the Taliban, like if you'd asked me, hey, what's the Taliban going to do? I could have given you a list, and that list of things would have all been correct. But they seem to just go beyond me, right? Like it wouldn't have crossed my mind, we're going to make a rule that a woman cannot hear another woman's voice. It's like, wow, I didn't even, you guys are going farther than I thought you'd go.
Yeah, I don't know where they're getting that, actually. I mean, I know that the idea is to prevent temptation on the part of men, but two women talking to each other, I don't get that. Maybe it's the idea that a man might be passing by and find them exciting in some way or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess all women are going to have to take tutorials from Ali Dawa's wife and start writing each other messages on whiteboards.
Yep.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, it's the 21st century, and we're sitting here talking about how are these women going to communicate now that they're not allowed to communicate with each other? Oh, maybe they'll use dry erase boards. And it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's like serious conversation about what's going to happen here in Taliban.
Yep.
Taliban
Yeah,
land.
it's well, I remember when I was a kid in the 70s, we would sit around and talk about what it would be like in the year 2000, and we were thinking we'd be driving around in Star Cruisers and going to the moon for lunch, and we end up in 2024 and people are saying, I think I'm a woman, and men are saying, and it's just, I would have preferred the Star Cruisers, but anyway.
Imagine if one of the movies like Back to the Future or something like that had gotten that right. It would have seemed so insane. People would have been like, you idiot, there's no way that's going to be a thing in the future, and they'd have been right.
Yep.
But you're right. What Back to the Future was predicted was, hey, you'll have hoverboards and have flying cars and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, all right. These are a bunch of weapons.
Is that a mosque, Robert? Don't say it. Is it? Okay.
It's a mosque. You can tell by the carpet. It's a mosque in Gaza, and the IDF went in there and look what they found. Now, David, surely this must be some kind of mistake. I mean, my church doesn't have nearly that kind of firepower. I don't know. Maybe yours does, but I think this is certainly a twisting and hijacking of the peaceful tenets of Islam, is it not?
I've been to some churches in Texas that I don't know. I got the distinct feeling that there were like 18 dudes in there who'd pull out guns in a heartbeat if a terrorist came in there. But yeah, that would be kind of an anomaly. Robert, how many times over the years? Middle Eastern places, European places, and so on, places in America. How many stories have we seen about hiding stockpiles of weapons in mosques?
Oh, it's all over the world. It's happened many times.
Mm-hmm. And if Israel said, you know what, we know they've got a lot of weapons in there, and just bombed them or something like that. I bombed a mosque of innocent people.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, the coverage of this whole war has been so craven. Recently they took out a Hezbollah headquarters in Lebanon, and it was in a school, and so of course Israel bombs a school, and nobody said, well, wait a minute, it's summertime at that time, and nobody's in the school except the Hezbollah operatives who are using it for a headquarters, but that part doesn't get reported.
Smart.
Yeah. Anyway, interesting comment here. Speaking of the war against Israel, we had an Islamic scholar, Masood Ali, also in Iran, actually. And he says, the most obstinate enemy of the believers are the Jews and the polytheists. The Quran mentions the Jews first. The racist Jewish nation considers only themselves to be humans and sees everybody else as their slaves. More projection, am I right?
You think? Go ahead and read that last part again, Robert.
The racist Jewish nation considers only themselves to be human and see everybody else as their slaves.
What does the Quran say about Jews, Christians, and polytheists? Calls us the worst of creatures. We're lower than animals. Quran calls unbelievers cattle and so on. Allah transformed the Jews into apes and pigs, and you go to the Hadith, and he thought they had been transformed into lizards and rats and so on. And it's just amazing that hey, and of course I left out that Muslims are the best of peoples ever raised up for mankind. So Muslims are the best of peoples. Jews, Christians, and polytheists are the worst of creatures. And here you have those Jews are bad because they think they're special and better than everybody else.
Only they think they're humans. And this is, I mean, yeah, the guy's holy book says non-Muslims are animals. And he says this. And then he goes on, today the racist Jews have exported their philosophy via Zionism to the world. Here again, Zionism doesn't apply to any other people, and it doesn't apply to any other land, just the land of Israel. And yet these people are making it out to be some kind of imperative to take over the whole world. Where might they have gotten the idea that there was such a thing as that?
Yeah, from their dumb prophet. What's crazy is they're blasting Jews. They're blasting Jews for thinking that other groups, other people are not human and so on. Jews and Christians are the ones who exported the idea that everyone's created in the image of God. And so that's sort of the basis for universal human rights. That eventually became the basis for a concept of universal human rights and so on.
And it's not an Islamic concept.
Not an Islamic concept at all. Islam is hell-bent on destroying that concept. And that's what, I mean, guys, this is what it boils down to. You have certain ideas about what human beings are, and you have a bunch of ideologies that are declaring war on that view of what human beings are. And it's just amazing that you've got the groups that are attacking the idea of what humans are, that is the basis for concepts of human rights. The groups that are trying to destroy that concept of what human beings are and of human rights and so on are the ones that accuse everyone else of doing that.
Projection.
It's completely insane. It would be hilarious if there weren't people who are going to suffer horribly because of this.
Yes, that's quite so. And wild thing about this guy is that even after Masood Ali says, today the racist Jews have exported their philosophy via Zionism to the world, listen to what he says next. Israel is not an ordinary country or government. It is the fortress of Khaybar for the West. If you manage to conquer it, you can conquer the West. What is that fortress of Khaybar? Let me play dumb again. What on earth is the fortress of Khaybar, David?
Well, you had the Muslims rolled up at the oasis of Khaybar, where you had a large Jewish settlement there of peaceful farmers. They had date crops and so on. And Muslims showed up as the Jews of Khaybar were literally walking out to the fields to tend their crops. The Muslims showed up and attacked them as they were on their way out. Big, strong Muslims. And they attacked the Jews at Khaybar, conquered the Jews of Khaybar. That's for people who want to know how all this stuff is related. If we've heard about Safiya and Muhammad torturing her husband to death, Kanana, torturing, had his companions light a fire on his chest. He knew where some money was hidden, he wouldn't tell. So they lit a fire on his chest and then chopped his head off and so on. And then Muhammad takes his wife, who's one of the most beautiful women in Arabia, Safiya, takes her back to his own tent. And so Muslims look at this as like, wow, this is how you roll. You go in there, you take all their stuff, You take all their stuff, you conquer them, you take their women, and that's the life. And so they look back on this. One little issue there is that there was also a woman named Zainab bint al-Harith there. And as the Muslims had worked up quite a hunger from all the slaughtering and raping they'd done that day, she sensed weakness and walked in there. Jewish woman said, "Hey, I'd like to prepare a meal for you, Muhammad."
You must be hungry after all that raping.
Yeah, especially since all her male relatives, her husband, her father, her uncle, they were all killed by Muslims. And she walks in and says, "Hey, I'd like to prepare some delicious lamb for you, Muhammad." Whoa, that's great. They were really impressing these people. Now they want to cook meals for us. So, long story short, Muhammad sees his companion Dihya just drop dead from this poison. As Muhammad was taking a bite, and Muhammad spits his out, but it did some internal damage and so on. And he spent the next 3 years, according to Muslim sources, he spent the next 3 years wallowing in freakish misery. Aisha said that she had, in Sunan ibn Majah, you can read it. Aisha said she had never seen anyone in more agony than Muhammad. And this lady had seen a lot of agony in her lifetime. So anyway, guys, everyone needs to learn about what happened to Muhammad at Khaybar. So when these dopes bring the people at Khaybar and the Jews are like, Khaybar, we're going to have another Khaybar. Oh, you got another prophet who's going to be killed? Really? Gonna do Khaybar over? Huh? Remember what happened last time at Khaybar? Yeah, you got to kill and rape some Jews. I understand that's really important in your mind. You lost your freaking prophet, you giant morons. It's a pretty interesting parallel to what just happened on October 7th. Like, hey, as long as we get to kill and rape some Jews, it's all worth. Okay, your entire territory there got blown down to rubble, but it's worth it because we got to kill and rape. It's like such an exalted thing to do, kill and rape Jews, that they're willing to sacrifice anything for it. They're willing to sacrifice all their children for it. They will gladly hand over every child born in Gaza, toss it on the altar of killing Jews, and they would gladly do that in a heartbeat. Why? It goes back to the time of their. Hey, as long as you're getting to kill and rape, it doesn't matter. Your prophet could die because of this. As long as the entire religion revolves around hating Jews. So
Yep.
It's weird stuff.
But note that he also says if you manage to conquer it, that is Israel, you can conquer the West. So he's not making any secret about it. He wants to conquer the West. And he assumes that his audience will be down with that and ready to go out and work toward conquering Israel so they can conquer the West.
And we've pointed that out over and over and over again, that, they have that saying, first comes Saturday, then comes Sunday. We deal with the Jews, then we deal with the Christians. We've pointed out numerous times that the obsession with Israel, isn't really about land. It's about land that was once controlled by Muslims. The Quran says, drive them out from whence they drove you out. And therefore it is an imperative from Allah that if you once had a land, you have to go in and take it back. You have to keep fighting. And then you have all these idiots, well, give it back to them. Give it back to them if they want it so bad. Just give it to them. Not realizing, okay, that's not just there. That's Spain. That's all kinds of places. And then, of course, once they got all that, which they're commanded to do, then the attention would shift to conquering the rest of the West. So, yeah, at least he's honest about it, because it's in short supply.
People are.
Honesty is in short supply.
Yes, it is. Speaking of conquering the West, over in Italy, we had an asylum seeker, a Muslim from Bangladesh, 28 years old, accused of raping a 10-year-old girl at a migrant center in San Colombano di Collio in Brescia. And he was arrested, and Don Battista Dassa, the priest of the local parish, he said, "This episode has nothing to do with migrants. We get along very well with them." Does that episode have anything to do with migrants, David?
What do you think, Robert?
Well, David, I think that it doesn't have to do with migrants as such. It has to do with the fact that many of the migrants are Muslim, and that consequently they think they can use non-Muslim women and girls for their own sexual gratification, as per the Quran's permission to reduce the so-called captives of the right hand to sex slavery.
And is that wrong, Robert? Is that sort of thing frowned upon?
not in Islam.
Oh,
It's
okay.
it's wildly morally wrong in any obvious subjective sense, but in Islam it's fine.
Hmm. Well, what we have here is a failure to communicate. It seems like there's some different values involved. They have an idea that this is perfectly acceptable, and we have an idea that that exact same thing is completely wrong and evil and immoral.
And so
But
instead of saying that it's wrong and evil and immoral, Don Batista Bassa, or whatever his name is, says, oh, this has nothing to do with the migrants. His first priority is to make sure people don't think it's bad to bring all these Muslims into Italy.
yeah, and it's just an interesting situation because you got one group who believes, hey, we are ultimately our ultimate goal is to subjugate you and use your women however we want. And your idea is that would be wrong and immoral, but the group that believes that's wrong and immoral is also the group that says that it's not true that the other group believes that. And it's right out of their sources. And so they can't invite them in fast enough. No, everyone's just lying about what these guys are saying and quoting to us as they do the things that their book tells them to do. Everyone's just lying about this.
Yes, it's Islamophobia. All right, over in France, we had more interesting adventures from migrants. We had a Muslim in Eton, which is in Essonne, something like that. Anyway, he went into a place to a gambling joint. Now, gambling, according to the Quran, chapter 5, verse 90, gambling is of Satan. It's not something that he should have been doing. But what was interesting was he lost a lot of money, lost a significant amount of money at Winamax, which is apparently a gambling joint in France, and an online betting site. So he sent a message to them, to all the employees of this site. I'm cleaning up his language a little bit. I'll kill you. And there's all kinds of expletives in here, but I'm leaving them out. Hitler was a great genius. Glory to ISIS. Filthy, filthy Jews. Now, the Jews actually had nothing to do with this. This is a betting parlor. He's just assuming that because it's a place where people are making money, that
If
it
people are
must be
making money, then it's Jews. Jews are the only ones who make money.
exactly. And so suddenly he loves ISIS and Hitler because he
Yeah,
lost a lot of money.
I have to say, in his defense, it's not, given how stupid people are nowadays, that's not actually a bad defense. Like, Robert, we should try this. We'll go to Las Vegas.
Mhm.
We'll lose a ton of money. And then we'll say, hey, actually, we're Muslims. We shouldn't have been doing that. So give us our money back.
Probably would work.
Yeah, their hearts will melt, and they'll be like, "Oh, okay, well, you're Muslims." And oh, no, we'll have to add. We'll have to add. And if you don't give us our money back, we're going to say that you're all Islamophobic here.
They are probably going to be very scared if we say we'll go to CARE, we'll go to the Council on American Islamic Relations.
Mm-hmm.
We will file a suit against you for Islamophobia. But man, that would be better than spinning, getting the right number on the roulette table or
We
whatever.
are going to be billionaires, Robert. Our
It's
channels will be funded forever.
and that's a good thing, David, because they are collecting the jizya in Mali. And if they're collecting the jizya in Mali, it's only a matter of time before they're collecting the jizya wherever they can collect it. But in Mali, the Islamic jihadis have imposed a tax of around $40. That's 25,000 francs, or at least francs in Mali. I don't know if that would be 25,000 French francs, but Mali and CFA francs. Um, on all the Christians over the age of 18, they have to pay $40, which is a lot of money for people who are living out in Mali where there's nothing much there and not easy ways to make a living. But the Christians over the age of 18 in Duna Pen, which is the largest Christian village in the east of Koro in the Mopti region, they're paying the jizya right now. And I think this is interesting because, every time I see a story like this, ISIS collected the jizya, other Islamic groups have collected the jizya over the years. And I remember back in 2001, 2002, people telling me when I would talk about the jizya, oh, that's archaic. Nobody is talking about collecting that today. You're misreading the Quran. This is only for the seventh set. You know the drill.
Yes, the sex slaves, jizya, obsession with child marriage, killing apostates, everything. You could go down the list, Robert. Everything we were accused of lying about 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008. Everything we said we were, they're basically shouting from the rooftops now. Of course, this is what we're doing. Of course, we're doing this. Of course, this is what Islam commands.
Yep.
Somehow we were the liars for accurately predicting the future based on what the texts of the past clearly said.
It's incredible. All right, I got to get this in before we go because this is a big story. This is Axel Rudakubana. And Axel Rudakubana is the Southport killer. He is the guy who randomly stabbed 3 young girls in Southport and injured 10 others at a Taylor Swift themed dance party on July 29th. And following that, there were riots, there were demonstrations of British patriots who
Yeah, because
said,
people thought it had something to do with Islam until the government insisted that it didn't.
precisely. And now it turns out, well, it did.
What?
Axel Rudakubana is actually a Muslim. And the government has now been accused, the Starmer socialist government of Britain has now been accused of covering up the fact that he was a jihadi and actually lying to the people about it at the time of the demonstrations and upbraiding them for being racist and Islamophobic for protesting against Muslim immigration because of Axel Rudakubana, saying he had nothing to do with Islam, he wasn't a Muslim, he's just some nut. And turns out, well, actually he was an Islamic jihadi, but only now do we know this.
Well, that's very interesting, Robert, because so you had more kids being killed, which seems to be happening quite frequently in the UK and other places. You just have these guys that get the idea, hey, let me go kill some kids. And then you had protests against this. You keep bringing in people, you don't vet them at all. And shocker, you're bringing in a bunch of people who want to kill us, and then they do after you let them in. And so people protested this. And the government, the brand new UK government, cracked down on this, stopped the protests in 2 ways. They started just locking people up saying, oh, you said this or you had this on your sign and so on. And so we're locking you up for 2 years. And by insisting, guys, this has nothing to do with this. You don't even know what you're talking about. You're all wrong. You're going after this. Has nothing to do with anything you're protesting about. You guys are insane. You guys are delusional. Guys, don't listen to these guys. They don't know what they're talking about. They jump to conclusions. And Robert, you're telling me that their conclusion was absolutely correct in what they were protesting for?
100%.
Wow. It's almost like we can't trust the British government anymore.
Wow, that would be tough. I've trusted them so long.
Yeah. I remember, Robert. I remember when they were saying, Robert, we ban you from our country because you say that Islam has something to do with jihad, and we cannot allow that to be said here. All we allow in our country are the people who promote and defend jihad and the grooming gangs. Those are the people we love. You are banned for the next 10 years. And I remember you saying, I still trust you guys completely.
Yeah, it was wild because every now and then people bring that up. They think that it's some kind of gotcha thing. Oh, this guy, he's such an extremist. He was banned. The British government said he was too extreme and too dangerous and incendiary to let into the country. Well, actually, the British Home Office letter to me says, you said Islam has doctrines of violence against unbelievers. So that's the extreme. That's the crazy thing the incendiary thing that you can't say. It's like banning me for saying, if you walk out in the rain, you might get wet.
Yeah, wild. I mean, just imagine all the stuff they're dealing with right now is stuff we told them was going to happen. And instead of paying the slightest bit of attention, just think about how smart this would have been. Robert, you're making these claims, and many of us in the government disagree with you. You know what we're going to do? You go ahead and pick a couple of people. You go ahead and pick a couple of people, and we'll pick a couple of people. We'll have this big panel discussion about this right here in the UK, so that we will expose you for what you're saying while simultaneously defending Western values of open dialogue and so on. Imagine how differently things would be going right now if they had had that basic level of sanity.
It would have, well, they wouldn't be on their last legs as a free society, which they are. Anyway, lots of jihad we didn't get to this week, David. There's a lot of stories at jihadwatch.org. Also, all the sources for the stories we did talk about. There was a big massacre in Burkina Faso. Jihadis murdering Christians. The death toll is over 200 last I saw. Other stories from all over the world. The jihad continues to advance. But, well, as I've said before, wherever it is, we'll be there. And so keep your powder dry. And until next week or whenever we can do this again, pray, hope, and don't worry.